temple, a Japanese Buddhist temple at Borobudur, soars like a mountain with ascending stages from earthly to transcendental concerns. Around its sculptured base are representations of the pleasures and sorrows of earthly life. The first gallery exhibits scenes from the life of the Buddha Shakyamuni. Mounting further, we are inspired by the pictured legend of a princely youth in quest of illumination. Higher still is the biography of the Buddhist sage Asanga. On the summit platforms, high above the earthly plane, are 3 circles of bell-shaped tabernacles enclosing meditating Buddhas. The temple palace Angkor Wat in Cambodia shows the same square format of heavenly order, Tritam. The plan of the temple grounds reflect the central channel and patterns set down in ancient yogic scriptures. The round Temple of Heaven in Peking, China, seems an exception to our rule of squareness representing heavenliness. However, its actual name is the Hall of Prayers for an Abundant Harvest, a temple of earth. In the upper center, this aerial view shows the round, 3-storied temple set exactly in the center of our heavenly square. A depiction of a Mayan holy mountain in Copan, Honduras. In Yucatan, about AD 950, the Mayans built this temple of Kukulkan, called the Feathered Serpent. In this view of the same temple, a causeway leads down to the circular sacrificial pool. This detail of a Toltec temple of Quetzalcoatl in Tehuacan, Mexico, gives several examples of the same feathered serpent. 2,000 years earlier in La Venta, Mexico, this Olmec pyramid was built. It is the largest holy mountain built in the Americas. This drawing shows the plan of the ceremonial center with the pyramid at the left. The pyramids at Giza near Cairo. The largest, at the far right, is not a tomb, but part of a ceremonial center. The greatest of all man-made holy mountains contains the initiation and testing chambers of the Egyptian elite. This is a north-south cross-section of this testament of man's determination to find God. Sitting atop a spiral holy mountain, the boy Christ teaches the doctors of Jerusalem. The tower of Saint Ivo della Sapienza in Rome spirals 3.5 times like the serpent Kundalini. After complaints from Indra, the god of the heavens, Vishnu devised a plan to preserve cosmic order. By insisting on the cooperation of the demons, his plan was to activate the dynamic equilibrium of the universal opposing forces. Thus the demons and the gods alternately haul Shesha, the cosmic serpent, who is wound around the world axis, Mount Mandara, and churn the milky ocean to produce Amrita, the nectar of immortality. This abstract of a Buddhist stupa, or temple, shows the 5 elements as they are encountered by the Kundalini energy as it rises up the Sushumna. Earth is toxins, water, emotions, fire, the heat of passion, air, the basis of thought, and ether, the space of consciousness. The path of the Sushumna is overlaid here on the anatomy of the human body. Inside the spinal cord itself is a small channel filled with spinal fluid. In yoga, the spinal fluid is transformed into nectar or amrita. The transformation process adds a missing factor to the cerebral spinal fluid, the genetic pattern holding DNA. The spiraling DNA molecule, shown here as a model, is, in humans, a double strand of sugars and phosphates held together by amino acids connected by the hydrogen atom energy bonds at the center. The DNA dictates how the body is formed. Here, the central channel of a human embryo has formed. Earlier still, when the cell first divides, the polarity is clearly evident in drawings of 4 and 5. The fuzzy strands are chromosomes made up of DNA. Centrioles about the nucleus stretch out, and in between spindles are formed. This line of orientation is the cell's sushumna. The origin of the sushumna is the connecting relationship between you as a divine entity and the divine other, God. Your nature and God's nature are the same and perfect. However, it is the relationship between you and God that is to evolve. God is already totally open to you. Your problem is how to open up totally to God. This gradual evolution is accelerated by a technique called worship. In this wall painting from the Egyptian tomb of Pashed, a man kneels beside Osiris, before whom is a genie holding a vase containing 2 torches. The eye of Horus above the man also offers the 2 torches to the god Osiris. Man worships God. Here, God responds to man, Sati 1, with a gift of breath, or prana. God's agent on earth is Guru. By surrender to Guru, the connection with God is made, and spiritual growth is assured. In beginning all pujas, or worship rituals, Ganesha is first propitiated. Ganesha, or Ganapati, is the Lord of categories. He connects the macrocosm with the microcosm. He encompasses all levels. He gives knowledge of the universals. He is the gateway to God. He is Skanda, the son of poverty and Shiva. He is the field marshal of Shiva's army. He dissolves all barriers and permits union with absolute truth. He leads us to understand the heavens. The dome of heaven is filled with stars. If the principle of as above, so below applies, then there should be stars in the dome of a yoga temple. Looking directly overhead at the underside of the temple dome at Kayavarohana, the formalized star pattern appears. The dome is the counterpart of the human head's dome. In a certain stage of samadhi, the yogi sees with divine vision the vault of his own head and cerebral cortex, which to him looks almost identical to this temple dome. Here's another temple ceiling in the Vimala temple at Mount Abu, Rajasthan, India. As one would expect, just below the stars of heaven are celestial maidens, apsaras. Yogically, apsaras are potentialities or powers that occur as a result of spiritual effort or sadhana. Apsaras are the various talents. The Apsara standing here above her husband, who are divine musicians and represent the celestial sounds, visions, dance, smells, and touches that occur spontaneously in meditation. Celestial experiences occur above the eyebrows, whereas worldly experiences come in via the sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. This face of Shiva is on a Shiva lingam or phallus in the inner sanctum of a Shiva temple in Udaipur. Shiva's bull Nandi looks on with us. 4 faces of Shiva, each with a different expression or aspect, are partly merged into the linga in the Chatur Mukha Mahadeva temple at Nachna, Uttara, India. This rare Kashmir bronze shows the bust of the personalized form of Shiva merged into his universal form, the linga. He wears a crown and ear studs. He holds a mala while blessing us with his right hand. In his left he holds a Vijja Puraka, a citron, which signifies the seed of the universe. Broken off linga, with Shiva in the front, was found near the ruins of an ancient temple at Kayavarohana, India. The erect vertical penis is a sign of upward flow of Kundalini, the evolutionary energy. The presiding deity at the Kayavarohana temple is the 28th incarnation of Shiva, Lakulisha, the club bearer. The staff or club in his left hand is the symbol of Shiva. The citron in his right hand is the symbol of Brahma. There is a knob at the part in his hair, a shalagrama, or shining place, a symbol of Vishnu. Lakulisha is sitting in the Shambhavi posture, the final mudra of yoga. Lakulisha taught Shaivism all over India in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. He reorganized the teachings of the Pashupata sect. Here he is in Yoga Pata Asana. The hand in front of his body forms Dharma Chakra Parvatana Mudra. In his upper right hand he holds a mala. In his corresponding left hand he holds the snake-entwined staff, the Lakuta. The 4 upper smaller figures are his 4 principal disciples: Kushika, Mitra, Ganga, and Kaurushya, the founder of the 4 subsects of the Pashupata system. Lakulisha is mounted on a yoni. The yoni is a symbol of the female principle. This reverse orientation of the phallus and yoni represents the upward flow of sexual energy, or yoga, the opposite of downward flow, bhoga. The idol or murti is centered in the inner chamber of the temple, the garbha, or womb. The garbha is located at the top of the temple plan. According to the custom of the Sanatana Dharma, only renunciates and Brahmin priests are permitted in the garbha. Only barons in the kauli, artisans in the mandapa, and servants can come no closer than the second to the highest front step. One's ability to accomplish determine what caste one is in. Servants are dominated by the lower part of their bodies, artisans by their stomachs, barons by their hearts, and godmen by their heads. As one advances up the evolutionary scale of consciousness, the brain develops. Through spiritual effort, anyone can purify and evolve his consciousness. The brain gradually reforms the neural connections until the hemispheres become fully integrated. This is a bodily manifestation of union. The modern brain of man has evolved rapidly since the days of the reactive Neanderthal 35,000 years ago to the God-ordered society of 9,000 BC, through the awakening of consciousness down to 1000 BC in the brilliance of the first millennium, when Greek philosophy and the Upanishads were written by fully alert ponderers of truth and perfect yogis. The stages of evolution lead from earth to heaven. In this relief of the 1st century BC, Indra, the king of the gods, is at the upper left, and Brahma is at the upper right, with his attendant hosts. In the center is a 3-part ladder reaching from earth to heaven. The left part is for Indra. The right section of the ladder is for Brahma, and the middle section has an imprint of the soles of a foot. The tree tells us that the foot belongs to Buddha, who at this early date was never physically depicted. This ladder comes down from heaven as God's gift to man, so that man can rise up in response. In Egypt, every tomb had a ladder to heaven like this, up which the soul of the awakened dead would mount to its place in the ever-circling barge of Ra. In the pyramid text of 2350 BC, it says, "The deceased ascends on a ladder that Ta, his father, made for him." The 8 steps of yoga are a ladder from earth to heaven. Each step has sub-steps. The yamas are 5. The niyamas are 5. Asanas are many. Pranayama are mainly 10. Pratyahara are 5. Dharana are 2. Meditation is 1. The stages of samadhi are 2. The first stage of samadhi has 4 levels. Samadhi is non-perceptional experience. It can be of anything: upset, confusion, serenity, or self. Hatha yoga is made up of the first 5 steps of yoga. Ha means sun, the male, willful principle. Ta means moon, the female, sensual principle. When spontaneous concentration begins, one enters Raja Yoga, or royal yoga. The 4th step of yoga is breath restraint. In this pranayama, the breath is held out for a definite number of counts. The counts are measured by the heartbeat. The heartbeat is the central measure or tala of time, kala. The heartbeat is visually shown here, the exact duplication of the interval of time. Here's a diagrammic representation of the sound wave of the heartbeat. A tala can be only a unity in actual existence. However, one can think of a half beat or a quarter beat. This lunar calendar of Athanasius Kirchner balances the intervals, or tala, of the moon. Calendars are visual representation of tala, or cosmic order. In music, the intervals are measured between two sounds that duplicate the same sound impression at different levels, such as middle C and high C, do to do. In Sanskrit, C or do is called sa. The yogic musical scale has 3 levels of duplication of the same sound impression: low sa, middle sa, and high sa. Each of these 3 intervals can be divided into 53 sub-intervals of the smallest differences the ear can hear. However, there are only 22 sub-intervals that produce a change in feeling in a person's emotions. These changes are called shrudis. A shrudi might be a ratio of 81 to 80 and change one's feeling from tenderness to delicate excitement. Sa is to music as Om is to life. The intervals of music are measured in the human ear in the cochlea, like the spiraling calendar of Kirchner measures the moon's phases. The hero of the epic poem, the Mahabharata, Arjuna, blows his conch to achieve victory over his enemies. His conch is called Devadatta. Devadatta is the Sanskrit word for yawning. When Arjuna sounds his conch, the enemy falls asleep. In yoga practice, the yawn signals the beginning of pratyahara and the entry into yogic sleep, where the enemy of conscious thought cannot live. In yogic sleep come true dreams that enlighten the yogi. This is the equivalent of Vishnu's sleep. Alone on the immortal substance, partly submerged, partly aloft, Lord Vishnu takes delight in slumber. There is no one to behold him, no one to comprehend him. There is no knowledge of him except by himself. Then in his sleep he dreams the ultimate dream, floating on the milky ocean, couched upon coils in the abyssal serpent Ananti, the meaning of whose name is unending. In the foreground stand the 5 Pandava brothers, heroes of the epic Mahabharata, with Draupadi, their wife. They are the ones of whom the dreamer is dreaming. At the upper right is Shiva, riding with his goddess Parvati on the milk-white bull Nandi, followed by a member of Shiva's howling host, the young wind god, or Marut. To the left of the central lotus-sitting Brahma is mighty Indra, the counterpart of the Greek Zeus. On his 4-tusked white elephant, Aivata, the rain-bearing cloud. And beside him, on peacock, the young warrior god Kumara, Shiva's son, another form of Ganesha. At Vishnu's feet is Sri Lakshmi, who, by rubbing Vishnu's right foot, stimulates his cosmic dream. Vishnu dreams his creatures. Pictured here is a creature dreaming of his God. Job's God, in the poet Blake's engraving, is pointing with one hand to the tablet of the law and with the other to the fires of hell. Is man a part of God's dream, or God a part of man's dream? Is there a transcendental view that includes both ideas? Out of Vishnu's navel arises a lotus on which sits Brahma, the creator. Here, Vishnu is adored by Garuda, Narada, the divine bard, and Shiva. Four-headed Brahma is about to create the universe. Lord Brahma turns his attention to the task of creation. But he could only see darkness in every direction. Then Brahma heard the sound tapa, or penance, vibrating in the ether, and he sat in meditation. After 1,000 celestial years, the sound of Krishna's flute entered Brahma's ear as the Vedic mantra, Om. When this was expressed through Brahma's mouth, the universe was formed. Creation first takes place as the Hiranyagarbha, or golden womb. From this perfect pattern, all forms and creatures are made. This perfect womb is symbolized in the yoga temple by the inner sanctum. In the garbha, or womb of the temple, the divine union of female and male is consummated in the yoni and linga. This union, partly experienced, results in the gradual unfolding of the universe. In interstellar space, the creation of hydrogen gas is a gradual, continuing process. How does this miracle occur? If you, as a spiritual being, partially open up or surrender yourself to God or the absolute truth of what is, that partial union results in your experiencing God to a partial degree. One is conscious of that partial aspect of God as matter. The particles of matter do not actually exist as themselves. That is the great illusion. They are actually aspects of God. Vishnu is God. Lakshmi, rubbing God's right foot, is the symbol of you. Their partial union forms Brahma, whose viewing and experiencing creates the illusion of the universe. All of this is dreamed by Mahavishnu in the foreground, Brahma, or the all and only God, whose dream makes female and male. So actually all things are various aspects of God. Here is God's universal form, the complete whole of everything that is. Through vision, this form cannot be tolerated. Only in perceptionless samadhi can the allness of God be cognized. Here, God shapes earth in the sweeping motion of his compass. John Milton wrote in Paradise Lost, "In his hand he took the golden compasses, prepared in God's eternal store to circumscribe this universe and all created things. One foot he centered, and the turned around through the vast profundity obscure, and said, Thus far extend, thus far thy bounds. This be thy just circumference, O world. With earth created, man began to progress through the cycle of eons from gold to iron. The lucky throw of the celestial dice is 4, the age of gold. The worst throw is 1, the Iron Age, the age we live in. These 4 ages are prophesied by Daniel in King Nebuchadnezzar's of Babylon. The prophecy was of an idol, mighty and of exceeding brightness, the head of which was of fine gold, its breast and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. God-men rule in the Golden Age, barons in the Silver Age, artisans in the Bronze Age, and servants rule in the Iron Age. The cycle of the ages repeats itself on a grand scale. In the microcosm of the human, the same cycle of life occurs. From the golden age of childhood and unconscious action, life rises up through the use of the will, purging impurity, mastering life, and accumulating merit, until life rises to a full consciousness of the heaven of a successful householder, where one lives out one's merit, comes to the temptations of the sensual, and when catastrophe strikes, one crashes to the disaster of death and unconsciousness. Then the cycle begins again as one is born into a new body or situation. The cycle of life turns and turns as the wheel of the sun chariot of Surya. The alchemist Kirchner describes the spiritual progress of the mundane spirit as passing from his source through all the planetary spheres to arrive perfected at the center, from which he expands, sees the center from the outside, and spirals catastrophically into the upper world, back to his divine source. The illustration from John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress to the Celestial City shows man's circuitous journey toward enlightenment, a spiral of unfolding consciousness in which similar situations reoccur on successful windings. The pilgrim is beset with trials, tests, and life crises until he is thrown catastrophically into the river of death. In his works, Jacob Boehme depicts the wheel of nature where God is in man's heart. Of this picture of the celestial and of the mind of man, Boehme says that it windeth itself from without, inwards into itself, for the deity dwelleth innermost in itself, even as God everywhere total and perfect, and dwelleth thus in himself. Sudama, the true devotee, is searching for the golden city of Krishna, the highest wisdom. However, if one is not graced by God or Guru with that wisdom, the result is catastrophe. This story of catastrophe is known throughout the world. In this Mayan drawing, we see the rain serpent stretching across the sky. belching forth torrents of water. Great streams of water gush from the sun and the moon. The old goddess